Pandemic.
Good evening. Welcome to Pandemic. I'm Joel Silberman. I'm here tonight with the Benson sisters, Julie and Shawna Benson, and it is thrilling to have them because I knew them when they were not the big deals that they are today, and I have seen them ascend the ladder. I can also see them in the monitor laughing at being called big deals, but I don't know if you've ever been on something called the internet or the fandom community, but I think big deal is certainly appropriate. So thank you to all for tuning in. As always, I'm going to start with a few quick words from our sponsors before getting in and introducing our guests properly. But before I do, I want to mention that today's episode is brought to you by Roadmap Writers and by Notes for Execs. Roadmap Writers is an online writer education platform hosted by working industry executives. If you're looking for a real-world solution to help develop, market, and sell your script, visit roadmapwriters.com to learn more. Notes for Execs is a company that guides working entertainment executives on how to give better and more effective creative notes. Now they're opening their doors to writers as well, who can learn a lot about their own writing through learning about the notes-giving process. notesforexecs.com. And so, just like that, without further ado, I'm going to hype up the Benson sisters even more, just a little bit, because it makes it exciting and I'm sure makes them slightly uncomfortable. But so you would know their work from The 100, which is not pronounced The 100, and then they work their way up the ladder on that show, and then to Woo Assassins, and then most recently have been working on one of the new Star Trek shows that they have already warned me they can say relatively little about, but that's not going to stop me from asking. So thank you all very much for tuning in, and just like that, I will jump over to the Sisters Benson. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm Julie.
And I'm Shawna.
Hello.
By default.
This is fun.
Yes.
And so you're co-quarantined together.
Yes.
Yes.
We write together. We live together. We quarantine together.
Wow.
That is it.
Yeah, it was one of those things we were never supposed to live together this long, but we have a great condo in Hollywood, and houses are millions of dollars, so it's really hard to buy our own places.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better.
This is better.
Well, it's also like if you've got something that works, then why leave it? And most people don't have the benefit of having family that they're close enough with, family of birth at least, that they're close enough with that they would want to continue to live together. And if you do have that gift, then why not?
Yes, we never fight.
That's right. We get along.
I don't know if I'm
well.
supposed to say. Yeah, never fight.
Sure.
I don't.
No. Okay.
Everything's fine.
It's great.
We're doing well. We're quarantining like everyone else. We're trying to write like everyone else. We're trying to buy groceries like everyone else, and walk our dog, and not get the COVID.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that there's a show to be written down the line that is just about two sisters who write together, live together. It's probably a little less genre, a little bit more CBS sitcom, but I feel like it would work.
Well, what if one of us started to change during quarantine and like started having weird habits and perhaps like I killed the other one and ate them?
I actually think it would have to be genre. I can't imagine a version that isn't genre.
Yeah.
Because, probably.
We'll work on it.
We'll workshop it later. It's fine.
It sounds good to me, and now that I think about it, you're absolutely right. You could actually do a self-produced horror movie of the two of you slowly changing,
one of us going insane.
If either one of us had like any like brain power left to think of something like that.
All right, I'll turn on the camera. We'll start now.
Okay.
Go.
I mean, yeah. All right. Yeah, this will be the baseline, right? So this is
a reboot of Benson. We actually say when we meet people or we give our name at a restaurant. Remember restaurants? We say, no relation to Benson. And it's surprising that no one knows what we're talking about because we're 90.
We're old, and most people don't know what that show is.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, you will be pleased to know.
Sorry, you're supposed to ask questions. We'll just take it from here, and that's bad. Sorry.
That's fine. I much prefer it when I say as little as possible. Though I would be remiss, and we have somebody here from Brazil. That's awesome.
Hello, Brazil.
I would
I
be
hope you're
remiss
safe.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the first interviews we had, Michael Whitehorn, who went on eventually to co-create The King of Queens and run that show and a bunch of other comedies, but he got his start with a freelance on Benson back when that was both freelancing and Benson were still things.
Oh,
That's pretty special.
I've been binging Columbo and wishing I could have written on that show back in the day, man.
Can we just spec that? Like,
Let's
just
spec a
it?
Columbo.
Yes, I think we should.
That's a great idea.
We're gonna
do that.
There are a number of folks out there I know right now, and hopefully some of them are watching, who are specking older shows, because those are the only ones
That's
that
a
the
great
showrunners
idea.
you can reliably know that the showrunners have seen it. Like if you say, yeah, I'm specking an episode of some show that's a big hit now, even Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones finale had fewer viewers live than the average episode of an NBC show in 1995. So if you can spec an episode of Cheers, do that. Like the Cheers coronavirus episode, definitely spec that, because at least everybody knows what it is.
Yeah. Oh, they all have to quarantine in the bar together. That'd be so great. And definitely Rhea Perlman. I can never say her name. Rhea Perlman. She's definitely killing somebody by the end of that episode. Like she's definitely going.
Oh yeah,
Carla's gonna like.
Well,
she's gonna smash the bottle on the table.
Cliff has to go.
Woody right under the throat. Anyway,
yeah.
I think that's a great idea. There are two shows.
I love about this is that just in the first 5 minutes or so of chatting with you guys, two kind of conventional sitcom setups have come up, and you're like, no, we're going to turn this on its head. Somebody's going to turn into something. Somebody's going to get murdered. We're going to genre the hell out of this.
We spend too much time in genre television.
We've probably given you in an unexpected way an insight into our psyche and how we think about story.
Yeah.
So it's probably not going to be an expected
interview over. Yeah.
Okay, so you learned everything you need to know about us.
And with that, thank you to our sponsors. Going to closing credits. All right.
That'd be amazing.
So getting down to the brass tacks of it, but not really. I am curious that I've seen the two of your dynamic together, and it is always funny and charming and a little off kilter. Looking at the world with a little bit askance from a different angle. And the chemistry between you is just fantastic. So what was the evolution of this? What is the origin story of you two, whether it was growing up or somewhere along the way, where you figured out, like, yeah, let's write weird stuff together and ultimately get famous and become well known for it?
We're not famous.
Okay, so
you're internet famous.
Tell the story properly. Well,
Shawna's going to tell the story properly.
Well, this is my part.
I did ruin her life, so this is fair.
That's right. So in order to tell the story properly, it is important to understand that Julie, my beloved younger sister, came into the world on my 3rd birthday. So we not only share an occupation, share a place to live, we share a birthday.
Yeah.
And but are not twins. So same birthday, 3 years apart.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted a pony. I got a sister. It's fine. It's fine. It worked out all right because the horse wouldn't have been able to write. So
probably better than me.
Debatable. But I think in any case, in all seriousness, we both have had a love of movies and TV, since we were very young. Our parents were big movie buffs, and they raised us on, John Wayne Westerns, Humphrey Bogart movies, screwball comedies.
A lot of Katharine Hepburn.
A lot of black and white movies. Turner Classic Movies is definitely one of our favorite stations.
The TV is always on Turner Classic Movies.
And we know a lot of those things. But we also watched, as part of that generation, we watched a lot of television, right? So, and we also had affinity for genre. So our dad was a huge sci-fi geek nerd, and he would read a lot of books, and he read comics. He had some comics and a comics collection from his past. And he gave me sci-fi books to read when I was probably way too young to be reading them. And so that's kind of where the kernel is. From there, like we would watch Star Trek and Doctor Who when nobody was watching Doctor Who and it hadn't been rebooted and it was living in the wasteland of no Doctor Who. And being a fan when your show's not on the air is probably one of the hardest things in the world. But like those were the things that we had an affinity for and we loved. And we would write little plays and we would act them out. And
we have tapes. At some point, when
they're
I'm old enough,
never coming
I
out.
don't care. Somebody can see them, but right now, not so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not necessarily good, but it was fun.
We wrote
and we enjoyed it.
We
and
acted them out.
I think somewhere along the line, it became clear that people actually did this for a living, and maybe that would be something cool. But we were both on kind of slightly different career tracks and for a very long time. I had a career in information technology and IT for many years. And so when I graduated college, I moved to Florida and I was actually living in Orlando working at Walt Disney World. And I did that for about 6 or 7 years, at which point 9/11 happened. And Julie had been living in Chicago and you actually were pursuing entertainment.
Yeah, I was at film school. I went to Columbia College, Chicago. Yay!
But you were working for King World at the time, and all of things just started to go kind of wrong. You know, not just 9/11, but like our childhood dog of 17 years died like within a month of that, and
our grandmother
died, and
I got dumped.
Yeah, and I got moved to a job I hated from a job I kind of loved because everything got scaled back in the tourism industry. And we just both kind of came to this mutual conversation about what do we want to do with our lives. And we were like, we want to do something creative. Yeah. And so we both made this plan to move to LA. And I got myself relocated by Disney, and Julie packed up the car and drove cross country and slept on her friends' couches and did all of that fun stuff. And then so you got your first job.
But yeah, so how we started to write together comes into this part of the story. I mean, we did write together as children, but then I thought I would be a producer. I really wanted to sort of be the person who picks the shows and tells you what time they're on and has a cigar and does all that stuff. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I want to be like Ted Turner.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to be Ted Turner or Brandon Tartikoff or somebody.
Anyway, so my first job, I ended up working for Dustin Hoffman for 3 years. I worked as his office manager, and then eventually his assistant left, and I was his personal assistant for about 1.5 years. And that was during the Meet the Fockers era. And it was a great job. It was definitely a foot in, but I was sort of at one point, talking to Dusty and said, I went to school to be a producer and do stuff. Like, what? I don't want to pour coffee and do all this stuff anymore. And I was very, cantankerous about it. And he was like, well, that's what you should go do. And so I started working in film, and I, job to job, and sort of being the D girl who reads the stack of scripts as high as, this couch every weekend and giving notes on it. And at some point I was doing that and I really felt like a fraud because I never tried to actually write a real script, but here I was giving these notes. And Shawna at the time was taking classes at UCLA.
Yeah, so I had finally made my move from Florida. It took about 8 months, but I got myself moved to LA, and I got my job here with Disney still, and I was continuing to work for them, but I had started taking classes at UCLA, first a professional program, and then I went into the UCLA extension classes, which I loved because those were being taught by real writers on real TV shows. So, one of my first TV class was taught by a producer.
He on House?
He was on House, yes. So he was a producer at that time on House, and that was awesome. Like, it was the most, and it totally changed. I mean, I had thought, I'll write movies because everybody thinks that. And I was like, why am I not writing television? First of all, I can write more scripts. They're way shorter. And I can then, get up to speed because I felt like I was far behind, because I had already had this career in the middle of a career and I was trying to transition. And I just felt like I'm not out of college anymore. I've been doing this a while. I need to hurry. I need to write a lot and get caught up. And
Shawna's 90 years old.
I am very old. So I did that, and then she came to me and said, hey,
Let's
maybe
write a
we
script
should
together.
write together something
Yes.
like our dream science fiction.
Let's write our kitchen
idea.
sink crazy. What's our, we used to love the show Space Cops. It was a British show. No one's ever seen it. If you have,
Like
we
5
love you.
people. have seen this
We
show.
love Doctor Who. We love Star Trek. We love all that. So let's just write something no one will ever
I
make.
saw it.
Go on.
I saw that show.
You
You
did?
did? Oh my god. Okay.
Wait, I think it was
So we
called,
wanted to
wasn't it
do-
called Space Police? And it was like a Muppet in the,
No.
Star Cops. Thank you very much.
Star Cops. Yeah, had this really cool theme song of like "Wheel across the sky." I don't know, something.
Anyway, so we wrote a Deadwood on the Moon.
Yeah.
Was our script, and we just kitchen sinked it. We did all this research into helium-3, and this was
Oh my
before the
God.
movie Moon and everything. And we were so like, this cutting edge. And because of my job at Contrafilm, we had just done a movie with Kevin Costner called The Guardian. Go and Netflix it. Great movie about Coast Guards with Sir Ashton Kutcher.
Is he a sir?
I don't know. And then because I knew the assistants there, we were having one of those networking drinks, and we said, "Hey, we just finished a script together," and you weren't even there. I was
Nope.
acting like you're
I
there.
wasn't there. I got the deets. I
went to
afterwards.
drinks without her. But I told them we wrote a script together, and we were really excited about it, and then just sort of casually pitched it to them, the log line, and they were like, "That's interesting because Kevin is interested in getting into television." And this sounds right up his alley. A Deadwood Western on a moon. Come on, it's Kevin
Yeah,
Costner.
he had just done Open Range, I think,
Yeah.
a few years earlier.
Which I love.
We were like, yes.
And so it just was one of those fortuitous moments where they optioned that script right off the bat. He was going to direct it. We started to meet with showrunners. We were getting momentum, and then the writer's
strike
strike happened. And that was in what year? 2007.
Dum,
So the
dum, dum.
2007 writer's strike it killed it.
It set back our career 5 years.
Maybe.
I think
But
so.
but more importantly, it gave us a minute to pause and say, okay, so writing something together, that was a really good idea, that worked. Maybe we should write things together. And then that's when I started to transition into television. I took a job at CBS. I worked in the current department for Kim Metcalf and Amy Reisenbach, who were still at CBS and kicking ass. And they, taught me everything about how studio and network worked because it was so different from features. I had no idea. So I kind of got the inside scoop. And then within that process, got my first job with a showrunner, which was Josh Friedman. And so from there, Shawna and I were doing assistant jobs and trying to figure out the system and write our specs and get our first break.
A couple of years after that, I was laid off from Disney, which was the best thing that ever happened, and I was able to kind of recommit to this process together and really work on our writing. And that was really kind of from that point forward. It was okay. I need to find an assistant job, any job, keep moving forward with writing.
And this is we meant it as all this is a very condensed version of our life, obviously. And we're being very jokey about it, but we also recognize that we had a huge amount of privilege in our process because our parents didn't pay for everything. We paid for, we had jobs, we paid for things, but Shawna getting laid off gave her a little nest egg that she could be unemployed and look for an assistant job and do those things. Had we not sort of been a little bit older and had that financial padding and just knowing that our parents were there for us, I don't think we would have been able to do these assistant jobs year after year after year after year. So we want to preface that and put a big star and say, if you're struggling and you're an assistant or you're even trying to get to be an assistant, we hear you, we understand you, and we're not tone deaf to that.
But the sort of 10-year overnight success thing is kind of valid. I mean, in our case, it was more like 12.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a long road. And for
yeah.
us, and that's okay because that was our journey, and the things we learned along the way, the mistakes, the successes,
No mistakes.
all fed into where we ended up and where we are now. So
Did that answer your question?
mostly. I'll dig into various parts of that, but I do love the 10/12 year overnight success story because I feel like a lot of people are frankly just less honest about the run-up period and will skip over years and skip over any identifying information that could say like what year it was that they were talking about when they're telling a story or how old they are, how long it took them, like those kinds of things
Yeah.
are little cheats, or for that matter, the financial aspect where people will say, yeah, and then, I went and I shot this short and it really made things take off, and, it had $100,000 budget that I got from my uncle. Like, they'll leave that part out. And so I think that including all of those little things really matters for people. And not everybody that's watching this is trying to make it as a writer. Some people feel like they are just really interested in writers and find
cool.
this stuff interesting. And there's also folks that are working that are assistants or staff writer level or whatever who I know come and go. In fact, in some cases, we've had people who have been guests come back and watch. But the point just being that for the folks who are breaking in, I think that there's something so refreshing about hearing people be honest in things that they've gone through, honest in privileges that they may have had, honest in hardships that they may have had, and the amount of time that it took, because then it saves you the question of, well, what's wrong with me, right? Like, if somebody, or even people like, I know a few folks like yourself who it took 9, 10, 12, 15 years to break in, and look back with regret at this choice or that choice and say, oh, you know what, if I'd gone left instead of right. And it's good to know that you're in good company, or that one is in good
Thank
company,
you.
I should say.
We are in good company, and I named the job. I think we've done it. We've poured the coffee, we've answered the phones, we've been the showrunner assistant, we've been the writer's assistant.
I've worked as a personal assistant to a writer, working out of his living room. So.
I was a script coordinator for shows. I tried to do everything just to keep the momentum going, because at some point I know people do get that, like, it's never going to happen for me, and I definitely went through that phase. Right before it happened. You go through that, like, well, what else am I good at? Learn to juggle or something. And it's really hard. And about that moment where you're about to give up, I find is usually when just something flies right out at you. And that's kind of what happened with the 100 for us.
Yeah. But I think if we hadn't built all of that up, there's no way we would have been able to get to that place.
Well, and I'm curious, when you were doing the assistant stuff, were you ever assistants in the same place, or was it one of you was an assistant over here and the other's an assistant over here? Because in a way, it seems that by being able to divide and conquer like that, even if only in hindsight, you make double the contacts over a huge period of time. Like, I feel like at this point you must know everybody in town.
Yes,
people seem to think that we do. We do feel like we know a lot of people. But we also, we made a point of that. Like, that was something very important to us, was to meet as many people as we possibly could. And not just to meet them, but to
genuinely interested,
make friends with people. And,
we like writers.
Yeah. I mean, they're our own kind. Yeah. And we're the people we like. They're the people we like hanging out with and talking with. They're nerdy like we're nerdy. And why wouldn't we want to have those friendships? And so I think that it sometimes happens where we'll go, oh yeah, we know that person. They're like, how do you know everyone? And it's like, we don't know everyone. It's also
been a decade, right, of building those contacts and knowing people, and
the same people last, right? Like, this business is a war of attrition to some degree, and you are, yeah. I mean, it's and if you continue to kind of move forward, you're moving forward with the same people. Typically. And so then you continue to know more of their friends and those friends' friends, and so to me it was like, yes, we never were in the same job together. Mm-hmm. We always had different jobs. And I know that there have been writing teams that have worked on a show in support capacity together. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Usually those are ones where
it doesn't matter.
In any capacity. Those are ones where it's like the writer's assistant, script coordinator, and they get together and they're a team.
Paper team.
Right. Or they, genuinely are like, this works for us, let's do it.
Yeah.
But, in our case, it was like, well, that's not really going to work for us to have that, like, try to do that. I mean, one of us is a scripty and the other one's a writer's assistant, or I don't know. So but it also helped because the two of us then had the ability to write a lot during those times when we were both assistants, and we spent a lot of time. Our process became to work over Google like chat during the day. It's so great because I still have a lot of chat.
Do you?
I have so much chat saved from the past.
What did
Oh,
I
it's
say?
amazing. There's some
That
really,
gives me anxiety.
no, there's really good stuff in there. But we would like chat during the day on our breaks or whatever, or swap pages back and forth, and we'll get into process in a bit, I'm sure. But like that was really worked well for us in terms of making maximum use of our time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and so then you're working on the 100, and who of you was the assistant on that show?
That was me. So yes, so the denouement to the whole story of the getting to the 100 is that when Julie was at CBS, she met a lot of people in the assistant ranks and in the company that were women who wanted to also be writers or were very on the verge, and we formed a writers group together, and we started meeting monthly. And Kim Shumway happened to be one of the members of that group, and she was the writer's assistant on season 1 of The 100.
Right.
And when she got bumped up to staff writer, that job came open, and I put my resume in immediately. So, and that worked out. Like, it worked out great. And then, of course, the show continued to run, and we got, brought in as staff writers on season 3 and worked there from seasons 3 through 5.
Yeah. It's one of the
just
things,
as easy as that.
Just so easy, you guys.
Just so simple. Well, it's funny because we had someone on last night who started as a PA. You may know Julie Klein, who was a PA.
Jenny.
I'm sorry, Jenny Klein. You're Julie. Yes, Jenny Klein.
Yes, we know her. We love her. Yeah.
Well, because she had the opportunity to come in as a PA on Supernatural, and that show just was on for so long that she was able to rise all the way up.
Talk about hitting the jackpot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, how many shows were you on that didn't go?
Well, by the way, I just saw your water cup, and it's one of the questions that I have for later is that your iconic tweet. If anybody has seen,
my friend Carlos got this for me at Disneyland, and I've been using it every day of quarantine. So I clean it every day too. Don't worry. There's definitely a hair in it right now.
Yeah.
Well, the irony is that it may be the most lasting piece of pop culture. I feel like that meme is going to end up lasting until we're all.
Oh, my Baby
once it's
Yoda
gone.
meme. Yes.
Yes.
Every
I guess
year
let's detour
I
for a
find
second.
like some random thing.
Well, so you rise up the ranks on the 100, but I did want to ask about the tweet. So for those that are like, listening 3 days from now on fast forward, because I know that there are people who do that, this transition is going to be very jarring for you. But I am really curious what the experience of having one of the world's most viral tweets was with the Baby Yoda
I was
thing.
thinking you were going to put it up on the screen. Do you have it? I don't have it.
Tasha, can you send me a link and I'll put it up on the screen? Send me a link in
Canva, put it up
Messenger.
on social.
Canva. It was, when we have holiday, when we have Thanksgiving holiday or Christmas, I get very bored. We visit our parents who live in Santiago. And every year I either get in some Twitter battle or I have something go viral. And this time I just was obsessed with Baby Yoda, and I saw a picture. So I Googled Baby Yoda, and I saw the picture. So I don't know who had that picture. I don't know who owned it, but I saved it and I cropped it and I changed it. And I just, and from what it looked like in the photo, I just thought it looked like my mom on Christmas morning in her bathrobe with her coffee, just lovingly watching you open presents. And so that became the tweet. And it was so simple and stupid that I really didn't think anyone would. I thought, oh, if anything, like 2 or 3 people will see it too, and they'll like it and it'll be funny. And then I'm sitting there, the day after Thanksgiving. I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, right?
Thanksgiving.
And your phone just boop, 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 and then it's just like literally blowing up, and you're like, what's happening? Everybody liked it. I have not made a cent from that or gotten a free Baby Yoda, so I'm very upset.
We're working.
Well, the Baby Yoda merchandise, didn't it just come out? And now
yes.
Here it is. I found the tweet. Now we're going to do a
still worth the wait.
for the first time in pandemic history, we're going to do a screen share.
Lord, here we go. Make sure your porn's hidden.
It is. I quit out beforehand just in case. Share screen, application window.
Here.
We're pioneers.
Yeah. Well, you're that genre people always are. So here we are. This is every mom on Christmas morning watching you open presents.
This is that.
Yeah. And it has now been retweeted
285?
285,000 times. So no big deal. But there are people who live their entire lives trying to get a tweet as viral as that, and you just did it like it was nothing.
Like it was nothing. And I've not been verified on Twitter. I don't know how to do it. It always tells me they're not taking people anymore. I got nothing out of it but a few followers and a lot of love, and I'm glad people ran with it and made it what it was. It was fun.
And I had fun, making fun of the fact that she was getting all of this Twitter love and I was getting none of it. So it was.
And she's been on Twitter like 10 years longer than me or something. I don't know.
I wasn't really about her.
Well, I feel like at the very
Twitter.
least you should get a blue check mark. Like, I think that it's bullshit. Anybody who's got a
one would think
give you a blue check mark. Let
Win, like,
it
a
seem
Hall
like
of Fame.
you'll seem like you're part of the
Twitter Hall of
media
Fame.
elite. Well, so
yeah.
So on that note, I want to pause just for a second to do a sponsorship break. But then when we get back, I want to talk about rising through the ranks and the personal things that you guys put into your scripts. That's always where the most interesting conversations happen. Questions from the audience, and of course, Star Trek, the new animated series that you may or may not be able to talk much about. So,
there's an audience? People are watching this?
They are, so you should make sure that you put your porn away too. All right, I'm going to hop over to the solo screen and do a quick sponsorship break. So, when you see my boring face, what it's time for. It's time to say that this episode of PENdemic is brought to you by my friends at Roadmap Writers. Roadmap is a screenwriting education platform for writers looking for a guided path to success. Programs are hosted online by working industry executives and are designed to empower writers with actionable tools to elevate their craft and cultivate industry relationships. Since 2016, Roadmap has helped more than 113 writers, including some friends of mine, sign to representation, and many others get staffed, optioned, or sell their scripts. To learn more, visit roadmapwriters.com and use code PENdemic to save $15. Roadmap Writers, the road to your screenwriting success starts here. Or, because it's Friday, my preferred tagline for them, Roadmap Writers. There's a lot of bullshitters out there. We're not them. Notes for Execs is a company that guides working entertainment executives on how to give better and more effective creative notes. Now they are opening their doors to writers as well, who can learn a lot about their own writing through learning about the notes-giving process. And as I've said a few times, I was the one who sat in on one of these sessions where execs were learning how to get better notes, and saw my friend Dan doing it, and said, you have got to open this to writers, because this has been so valuable for me as a writer. So if you want to have that same awesome experience that I had, go to notesforexecs.com and check it out, and tell them that PENdemic sent you. And so with that, we will rejoin the Benson sisters, who I'm pretty sure are ready to rock. I'm getting better.
Are you sure you want to do that?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. But so, during this time, before we get into the 100, during the 12-year overnight success before, as you're writing scripts and as you're working together, what does the writing process for the two of you look like? And how does that process change and evolve? What do you learn along the way? And what of yourselves individually and as a team do you put into your scripts? And you have to answer all of those in the order asked. No, I'm kidding. You can order
Okay,
in whatever order. Whatever order makes sense, blah, blah, blah. All, none.
I do none of the work. I make Shawna do all of the work. And that's how you do it.
It's hard, really, dragging her dead weight around. That is not true in the slightest. Basically, the way that we do the work is divide and conquer. I mean, we have the advantage of having a lot of the same kind of base knowledge, what do you want to call it? Like
vernacular.
Shared, like, vernacular, like our shared universe of experiences. And so we have a shorthand that is easy for us. A lot of the same kinds of things come to mind, but thankfully there are differences. You know, where Julie definitely focused more on, you know, like reading comics and things. I was reading, you know, not big novels and stuff like that.
I was reading the picture books.
I wasn't saying that you were reading the picture books. I didn't read as many comics.
I didn't read no novel.
Okay, try this again. So we divide and conquer. So we can break story together. We, you know, talk about what are the beats of this episode or this, you know, this thing that we're writing, and we come up with those moments and get the shape of the story and the arcs and the characters and all of that. And then once it's all beat out, we split it. You know, it could be the first half and the second half, or it could be you take teaser 1 and 3 and I'll take 2 and 4. Whatever it is, whatever makes sense for that particular script, we just divide and conquer, once we've each written our halves, we swap pages. I do a pass on hers, she does a pass on mine. And if in that process, usually right around there is where if something isn't working, we figure it out and if we have to go back and re-break, we'll do it there. Very rarely do we get all the way through the process, like of a couple of passes before we realize there's a problem. It happens almost immediately. So once we've done all that, you know, we've passed those pages back and forth, we do a merge. And once we've merged the whole thing, somebody does a pass. You know, I would do a pass and then I pass the whole script to her and she does a pass, and we do that as many times as we feel like we need to. And that's it. That's our process. Easy, right?
So easy.
Easy.
Practically writes itself.
Yes, honestly. I don't know why we're here. Why are we here?
I keep touching my face. I don't know.
Stop doing that. It's a pandemic.
I washed my hands. Hands are clean. Go on.
Well, so that's a super informative about structure, and I think that's invaluable for people that are watching, and how to break up and divide work for people who are watching and trying to figure out how to work in teams or even on their own. The deeper part, and I'm curious because I've often started these interviews with the question, some variation of saying, great writers write not just what they know, but who they are. So therefore, who are you? I'm kind of curious. I know who you guys are in terms of how you came up and the things that you share together in professional history. What are things that you bring personally that one may have and the other may not, or that you both have that you build off of each other when you're building into a script?
I'm letting you answer this.
Oh, why me? This is the hard one.
You can also.
I don't know what I bring to it. I think I bring. Yeah, no, I think I bring a lot of the more comedic element to the stories. I joke, I pick on Shawna because when she does her first pass of dialogue, now I can say it's her first pass, which is everyone's throat pass. She writes everyone, they all sound like data. Like no one has contractions. Everyone is saying exactly the words. And it is hysterical. And I read it and I just laugh so hard because I can see that she's just getting it down. And so then I have to do a lot of like, okay, so what's the rhythm of this person's speech versus that person's speech? So I kind of tend to be the dialogue polisher and the joke person, and I'm the idea person. So I bring a lot of the what if we do this and what if we do that? And Shawna kind of calmly sits, as you can tell, our dynamic, and thinks about it. And she does her beautiful mind thing and looks at the structure of what we're talking about. And she can kind of take all the puzzle pieces that I'm throwing at her and make it an actual picture.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get excited about the problem solving elements of story. We need to get to point D over here. So what are points A, B, and C that get us to D? And are those points lined up? And are they connecting to each other the way that we want them to? And if they're not, then how do we fix it? So yeah. I do love that part of it. And so I love reading stories out and really, digging into that and figuring out what works. And, all of the elements are obviously important, and we do, we have to, we do all of it. It's like, we don't just write the women characters, we also write the men characters anytime we have a script. And, you know, it's shocking how many people think you just write a single character in a script on a TV show. And it's like, no,
Write them
you
all.
write them all.
Really?
So it's true. I've actually gotten that. We've gotten that question. So it's interesting to me because I think that the remarkable thing is that as similar as we are in our tastes and the fact that we are family members, we are sisters, yet we still have like complementary with an E, complementary skills, is kind of a miracle. Like we aren't doubling up on, you know, each of us is just like totally into dialogue and our story structure's a mess or, you know, something like that. So it's a good thing. And she can make fun of my dialogue all she wants. I don't care.
I will. And I think you also bring a lot of the technical aspects. Like when we wrote Oracle for Birds of Prey, Shawna was amazingly helpful because she could bring all that technical computer jargon. Or if we had a Raven scene in the 100, Shawna would be the person in the room we'd all look at and go, what's the gobbledygook we need here, you know? So she also brought that decade of experience she had being an IT person has helped us in the room. Just like if somebody's a lawyer and comes in late in life and is working as a writer or a doctor or a garbage truck driver, I don't know, you bring with you all of those experiences. And I think writers' rooms need that. We need different experiences. Mine was very straight down the line, you know, Midwestern lifestyle. Can't live in this small town, have to go to a big city and go to film school. I'm going to be something someday. And then, you know, finding my path that direction, whereas Shawna got to have a little bit of a circuitous path to it. So all that's to say, even though we had quite a few years apart where we were doing our own things, I think those were the formative years of that. That's now what we add to those scripts, because had we just stayed together or done the same thing, we would just be this mono voice. It would be super weird. I bring all the good writing and Shawna brings all the bad writing. Does that answer?
Well, it is interesting to me how you talk about that division. I think that any writing partnership is going to end up, even if you did come up under the same roof or have similar sensibilities, that you're going to end up having some kind of division like that. Whether it's, you know, there's a seed of it at the beginning and then it evolves and grows and you know to expect it from one another. I also think it's interesting, Shawna, because you talked about having an IT background, and it's been a long time since I programmed anything, but I do find sometimes that in the back of my head when I'm revising a script or as I'm structuring a story, there's still a little bit of that coder in the background of me, for me, a little bit of the logic flow that's going, okay, A causes B, therefore X. Wait, there's this part of the alphabet that needs to go in the middle. And I think that having that ability, you know, I think it's totally fair to joke about writing like data, but also there's utility in that too, because it just gets out all of the information and then it can be smoothed and turned into a script later. So that makes a lot of sense.
It's hugely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about, I need to know what the story is and how it functions before and what those characters are saying to each other, not necessarily just in the text, but in the subtext, before I go, you know, zhuzhing up the dialogue to make it slangy or to give them differentiation between their voices and things like that. So there's a lot of, I definitely do a lot of processing on the page in my first draft. Like, I'm an outliner. I'm totally that person. I'm not a pantser. I'm a planner for sure in that way. And
can you explain for a few folks that may not know what those words mean, pantser versus planner?
Sure. So pantsers and planners are one way of saying, like, you are someone who flies by the seat of your pants, and you can just start at the top of your story and write it to the end, because you kind of conceptualize everything in your brain pan as you go. And the planner sits down and writes it all out. And thankfully, TV works to my benefit in that regard, because you have to do that for television. I mean, you're working in a writer's room and everybody has to understand what the story is, so you have to write it out. So that's kind of, I think, whereas I know, and you've done a brilliant job in the past too, with like specs you wrote,
Go
I
on.
don't know. They were a little popular.
I don't know what she's about to say.
But there was a time, of course, when we were writing our own things, write our own specs, because we do that, and we have different interests. And Julie does love comedy, and she's such a funny writer, and I am not a funny writer. I am a dry wit, and it's very difficult to translate that sometimes. But Julie is funny, and so. But I have seen her write scripts where she doesn't write an outline, and she just starts, and then she finishes it, and it's done. And I'm like,
that's only comedies. That's like quick, fast, Eastbound and Down script, or
it was so
what was the other one? Oh, Parks and Rec. I wrote an Eastbound, a Parks,
and It's Always Sunny.
And then It's Always Sunny. Oh, and Silicon Valley.
Yes,
those were
your four.
Basically any 12-year-old boy sense of humor scripts. We're like, I'm just gonna whip one out and just see what happens, and it'll be fun.
Yeah. But so those different types of writing styles can benefit you in some ways. I think when you're doing we call freeform jazz, when you're like having to just come up with like really big ideas, and you got to be quick about it, and just like, well, what about this and what about that? That's where the flying by the seat of your pants can be really beneficial. Whereas I will definitely be the person who sits back and like stares at the board and goes,
I'll be like, okay, so here's an idea. What, don't like that? Okay, what about this? So I'm the sort of idea tosser, and Shawna background processes, and everyone kind of in a room realizes, all right, that's the point usually where you have to sort of check in with Shawna and say, all right,
so what's going on? And I go, well,
and then she'll sort of define where her brain is at. It's been a little bit of a learning curve for us to even understand that dynamic of how we act in a room.
And it's because we are our own writer's room to a certain degree. I mean, we have that benefit and advantage over a lot of people because we work together, and when we sit down and we break story, we are a writer's room. We're two people, but maybe the dog's there, and he can definitely, and he does make himself known and tries to get things in the story. And I'm sorry, he's just not coming up with the right ideas. I mean,
we're gonna have to
he does try, but but the two of us can sit there and generate, that story together, and so that's kind of given us this weird twin speak thing that happens when we're in bigger writers' rooms.
Oh, that's fun.
Because this
is what we'll do.
Yeah. So, let's demonstration.
So Joel, just give us a pitch, like just like a one sentence, like the bear went into the woods and killed the whatever you want.
The starship is out of dilithium crystals.
Okay. If we did that, then we could maybe.
You think that we could do the thing where the dilithium crystals, it's not the thing that it's at. Yeah.
And we go, that'll work. And we go, and then everyone's like, what just happened?
It's so weird because we can just twin speak and understand exactly what we like or don't like about the pitch, or where's the twist on it, without even finishing each other's sentences. And so I want to know if other writer teams have this, or if it's just a sister thing. I would love to know if you're a writer's team watching. Tell us if you do that too.
Yeah, because we do it, and sorry, everybody else, they get freaked out. But we can't help it because it's just, again, we have a language between us that
almost out of time. Oh no.
Oh my God, we've talked so much.
It's fantastic.
Horrible.
You
can tell that we're just anxious for
like
humans.
If anybody does play this on like 1.3,
we're sorry.
They are so, because we talk so fast, and they're gonna lose everything. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, it's fantastic, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And it's not planning; it's pantsing. This whole show, so if there's nothing that we have to hit. It's just about having good and interesting conversation, and this is certainly that. And we do have a bit more time. I will say that there have been fewer questions coming in from the audience tonight than often is the case. So if you're watching and you have questions, definitely throw them out. And I think there is a correlation between the openness of the talkers and the number of questions, because but so I do have a message here from Tasha that just says in all caps Star Trek. So I
Star
have
Trek.
Yes, I desperately want to ask, because I'm one of those schmucks that ends up clicking on the clickbait articles that's like new information about Star Trek Discovery or whatever the Star Trek show is, and it's like the new information is that they ordered another set of porta potties for the crew, and that means there may be a new character. Is that character going to be like I'm the idiot that clicks on those stories? So
we are too. Don't worry.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
We love Star Trek. Shawna's love for Star Trek goes back to a certain age that I will not say here. When a certain Next Generation was on television, and Shawna would record them on VHS. There were these tapes that you put into the machine, and then you'd actually hit record, and she'd record the episodes, and she would label the sides, and then we'd have them on the shelf
with the and it wasn't even like time stamped. It was like this weird number system
time code that the
from
VCR
our
had,
and I put all the numbers on there,
and then we could watch all the episodes. So she was a huge Trek fan, and that's
for the young folks out there. That's how we
well
had to do binge watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had all of the episodes recorded and without commercials because we had this weird satellite feed thing where we could like record them all.
Yeah. So we were super fans, and watching the original series with our dad. Late night an episode would come on, and you'd be like, "Oh, Kirk is kind of weird, but I like that Spock guy." And Kirk is, I guess, handsome, but I like that Spock guy, and I like the bones, and I like all those things. And then the Trek universe has opened up so much, and we had an opportunity. The Hageman brothers and the Benson sisters sat down, and we were actually talking to them about
a sibling summit.
We had a sibling summit. We were talking to them about another project, and one of the things we mentioned was like, I don't know, because it's animation. We've never done animation before. We're a little hesitant. It's not our thing. We're not sure we can do it. All those doubts that you have as a writer. And we said, honestly, it would have to be something like Star Trek or Doctor Who or something super cool for us that we would feel like we know the canon enough
to do it,
and that we could come in prepared. And they both looked at each other and were like, so interesting you should say that, because we just pitched a Star Trek animated series to Nickelodeon and with Secret Hideout, and we're doing it. And we were like, oh, okay. So the stars aligned last year, and we were able to do the show, and with all the other development we were working on, and it was such a blast. They are so insightful into that process. If you Google the Hagemans, you'll see their IMDb page. They've done
very impressive list of credits.
Troll Hunters with Guillermo del Toro, and they wrote the Scary Stories movie that just came out last year. All that stuff. So these guys know they're doing
the Lego movie,
the original Lego movie, the first one, and we got a little room together and, made a serialized Star Trek show. And there's so many secrets and Easter eggs that we want to talk about desperately, but they are going to make really big announcements about the show itself and the casting and all that good stuff. So we have to basically shut up about it. But I will say in the room, we collectively always talked about what would 8 to 13, 10-year-old Julie and Shawna have wanted to see in a Star Trek animated series. What's the show we would have wanted to watch? And also, what would 20-something Julie now, no, fine, want to watch now? Like, what else, what's the Pixar happy, quadrant where a kid can watch it and a parent can watch it and everybody's
watch
happy
it together and enjoy it together.
And I am 100% positive we hit that mark as a writer's room, and just amazing people on that show and beautiful visuals. I think they've announced 3D animation.
It's going to be 3D animation.
It's going to be beautiful. They have not announced the title yet, so we can't say it, but it was just such a blast. And we would put Easter eggs in there all the time. So we're excited for Trek fans to watch it and be like, oh, what was that? And yes, the answer is yes, it was.
And I would say the room was about 50-50, like hardcore Trekkies, and the other half were people that maybe had watched some Star Trek. There was like one guy who never watched Star Trek.
Which was great.
Which was awesome, because you could basically stress test every story against him, and you weren't relying on just the nostalgia or the IP of Star Trek.
The story had to work.
Does it work? Do these characters work? Does this story work without just having the banner on top of it?
It was a lot
that's
of fun.
really valuable.
We wrote 2 episodes out of the season. I guess they're calling it L season.
I guess.
And they're animating it now. And that's amazing that they can do it from home, I guess. I don't know how it's working.
They're actually still able to work during a pandemic.
The scripts are done. I know the Hagemans probably just turned in the finale today, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And
Very close.
and we're really proud of it. I can't wait to see what it looks like. We barely saw character designs before the room wrapped, so everything was still very early days in the look of the show.
And that was obviously very different for us to process. We weren't used to that much, lead time of writing before production.
Yeah.
And to the point that you don't even know what these
What
characters
anybody
look
looks
like or what they're going to necessarily mean. You kind of have an idea what they're going to sound like, but not entirely. And so that was interesting. But what we also were really adamant about was that, that we are live action writers, and it needed to have the sort of, kinetic energy that live action has. And we treated the story like live action,
Yeah,
right? And those guys did too. Like they, it's very much like, it's going to be a sophisticated storytelling like any other Star Trek show on the air now, but
with stakes. I mean,
yeah,
already inherently you're in space. There's life and death.
There's about 1,000 ways to die in space. So
we'll see. Nickelodeon and CBS All Access, or just CBS Studios? CBS Studios.
Yeah, initially, I mean, as far as we know, it'll be Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
it could be streaming.
During that process, the merger with Viacom happened, so who knows what'll end up happening. But everybody was so supportive, and it was such a great work experience. And we ended it right when the pandemic started. So end of February, we were all doing karaoke for the wrap of the writers' room and kind of passing around sanitizers because we had heard about this COVID thing, and then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, we're all at home. So the timing, I guess, was good.
Well, so now I'm extremely excited and wanting to see this thing and wanting to know more information to questions that you can't answer, and that's totally fine. I'm curious, though, just in terms of definition, because it has been announced, but I'm not sure what it... You said it's 3D animation. That doesn't mean 3D like people putting on glasses and that kind of thing.
No, so you know how if you've ever seen like a Scooby-Doo cartoon or any of the old, Looney Tunes, anything like that, that's hand-drawn 2D animation. There's no physicality. 3D just means it looks more like, a Clone Wars, three-dimensional computer. But they're doing all
storyboards and all of that stuff is all hand-drawn,
It's going to be amazing. From what we saw from some of the images, it's
very exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
Cool. And
can't wait to see it.
And it's funny because I'm going to totally piss off the audience here because I think I may have inferred something from something that you said that that I won't say aloud because I don't know if you're supposed to, but I will totally ask you about it afterwards. And so you, but don't worry, I don't think that you're in no danger of any kind of breach of contract, so we're all good. But the fact that you all are big fans and sound excited and pleased with it is exciting and pleasing to me. I remember a friend of mine co-directed, he and his brother, in fact. I feel like after this is all over, like there should be a mixer, maybe there already has been and I wasn't invited because I don't have a sibling in the business, of like the siblings that work together, like the Benson sisters and the Hegman brothers and the the
Duffer brothers,
the Zuckermans,
the Zuckerman sisters,
exactly.
The Molyneux,
Molyneux.
Oh, I can't remember pronounce that. I'm a terrible human.
Wachowskis.
And then whether or not anybody invites the Baldwins is entirely up to them.
Baldwin, sure.
Yeah.
But so
we do have Sister Summit. We do know a few of the writing sister teams, and it's always great to talk to them.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Nora and Lila, thank you.
But yeah, a couple friends of mine did the behind-the-scenes featurettes for Star Wars Force Awakens. And so they were on set all the time and had a zillion NDAs, and I saw them at a birthday party, and I was like, you can't tell me anything, I'm sure, but just like, I know what big fans are you are you happy? And they just both lit up and they were like, yes. And then Force Awakens.
Oh, yay!
So I'm hoping that this is the equivalent here, because the two of you seem pretty satisfied and psyched, and I will take that as a nod that this show will at least make sense, which is not always the case in Star Trek.
We try. We try very hard.
Cool. No, there's I think Trek fans are going to be extremely happy, and I can't say more than that, but stay tuned.
Cool. The comment that will launch 1,000 blog posts. People, well, Julie Benson said that Star Trek fans are going to be happy. I think that means they're bringing back Worf. And it's like, what? I don't know anything. There may or may not be a Worf. I just don't.
That would be fun.
Oh my god.
No comment.
Yeah.
Oh, I moved the thing. Sorry.
Well, so as we're reaching the end here, we're past 7 o'clock. I do like to ask towards the end, are there any tips or insights, you've already given plenty, of course, that you like to impart to writers that hasn't come up yet? Or for that matter, any thoughts about the writing process that may not have come up? Really anything that you want to share that hasn't been covered.
I think just tonight we actually talked to our writers group, our all-female writers group, and we sort of asked each other. We talked about the quarantine, and we talked about dinner schedules, and we just talked not about shop really until sort of later in the conversation, and sort of got a beat on what everyone was doing. And by the end, I sort of threw it out at the group of, is everyone writing, and do you want to be writing right now? I don't want our writers group to feel like a burden, but I also want to use it for what it is, which is to make a great deadline and feel like you're compelled to want to add and motivate to the group. And everyone unanimously, that's the right word, I do malapropisms a lot, and I almost did one, said we should meet again in a month, even if it's, here's 5 ideas I'm thinking about to pitch or to write spec or something, just to keep the oil, the joints a little loose, you know? But at the same time, we're not holding each other to have a screenplay in 4 weeks and, you know, being really hard on ourselves. So I guess the advice I'm trying to get to is be kind to yourself right now. Yes, this is a great opportunity to write, but it is also a terrible opportunity to write. So don't feel beholden to have to write the best screenplay you can right now. Take the time to listen to yourself and be creatively excited. Now, that's not to say, let's say there's no pandemic. You may never feel creatively ready to sit down and type at that typewriter, but you kind of have to force yourself. Yeah. So I'm trying to meet myself halfway to that. Like if I knew there was no pandemic, I'd be forcing myself to that keyboard and saying, all right, Julie, even if it's crap, just write something down.
Or even if it's only for a half an hour, whatever it is, to just like get some words on the page. Yeah. Because I find it easier to rewrite, you know, what I've already written, especially if it's terrible. It's much easier to go, oh my gosh, this is okay, let's fix this.
So we're also finding other ways to write, which is reading, trying to do some reading right now, and actually watching is really valuable still, because we're catching up on a lot of shows. There's so many shows that we all missed, and so now we're able to binge a lot of these series, and then that's inspiring us with new ideas and letting those creative juices flow. So I think our advice right now is for the pandemic is there is no one way to be doing this, and just know that and feel okay about it. And, you know, just if you really want to write, though, do it. And if you're really feeling lost, don't do it. And that's okay.
Yeah. I think along those lines, the piece I would add is that writing can be a very solitary activity. TV writers have the benefit of it being a team sport. And so you do tend to actually get together with people fairly regularly. But if you are in a position right now where you're not working in a room, but you're trying to, you're spending a lot of time on your own, get a writer's group. It really is like having a trial writer's room, to have a group of people that you can work with, who can read your work and give you feedback, and you can, you know, test out ideas with, and just also bond with, Zoom and have friends who understand the struggle that you're going through. And yeah, the advantage is that you can have friends that live anywhere.
So Brazil, anywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
get a writer's group with other people.
LA or in the world, you can have a writer's group and all set deadlines together and
I love that.
Push forward together. I mean, that's and be encouraging and you know, because it's not a zero-sum game. There is a lot of, you know, there are a lot of shows.
I will add, if you do the writers group thing, be very clear up front what kind of writers group you want. There are some people that just want a group where they feel supported, and it's a cheerleading team, and it's like having your mom read it, and everybody's happy, and you just feel really good. If you want that and need that, that is totally understandable and valid, and you can do that. We were in the position where we really wanted to break in, and so we wanted a group of people who would be brutally honest, and that doesn't mean they're rude and mean about notes, but like, we're going to tell you if something's not working, and we're going to tell you what is working, and we're going to be really honest with our notes and cheerlead as well, but the group is for that purpose for us. And so if you can find a group of people who do that and mean that and want that as well, I think it's invaluable.
And it can be a little trial and error. Like, you may not get the right group at first, but you just have to keep trying people out, right? And
you don't only get one group in life.
Yeah,
you can do whatever. Yeah. That's our advice.
I think that's great advice, and I also think that along those same lines, if you have the opportunity to be in a group, to join a group, or for that matter to start a group of people who are kind of at a similar place in their careers, then it can be helpful to you in taking the next step forward, which is, it sounds like what happened with you two, as opposed to like being, not that this would likely happen, but if you're somebody who's trying to break in and you have the opportunity to be in a writer's room with a bunch of mid-level writers, or rather a writer's group with a bunch of mid-level writers, like a mid-level writer isn't really in a hiring position and is less likely to be asked, like, hey, do you know anybody for an assistant job, as somebody who's currently working as a writer's assistant. And so working with folks who are at your level and not trying to do vertical networking but horizontal networking, it occurs to me actually that I met the two of you at a writer's assistant network mixer in the first place, before I was even involved in that organization, and now I am not really anymore, but that finding people that are at your level and then kind of rising together is really important, and that the people that are going to be able to help you the most and that you're going to be able to learn the most from and that are going to be invested in you learning more will be genuine peers. And by the way, for the same matter, like if you're a writer's assistant and you're in a writer's group with a bunch of people who are doing it as hobbyists who you don't think are serious, you're wasting your time.
Get out.
LA is the biggest small town that there is, or the smallest big town that there is. You know, everybody kind of knows everybody. So in one way or another,
6 degree of separation.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things where be cool, man. Like, because you know that you're going to keep running into the same people over and over again in this town, and people who have worked with those people or worked with you in the past that then go and work with somebody else that you might then work with. I mean, it happens every single job that we're on. It's, oh, we worked with that person on this show and they worked with them on some other show like 2 or 3 shows ago. And so, you know, the network just kind of builds from there.
Yeah.
Assistants are the most valuable thing in this industry, and
they are.
Having been one, I just want to say congrats to anyone here who is one or wants to be one or is on the verge. And right now is a crazy time to even think about doing those jobs because there's no rooms to be had per se. There's Zoom rooms, but this too shall pass. And I think if everyone can just stay focused on what they're trying to do, all the better. So good luck.
So the key takeaway for everybody, and I want everyone to really internalize this, is to have a talented sibling that you can join up with and have great chemistry with, and then you two, after a short 12 years, can have an overnight success in Hollywood. Sound about right?
That's the recipe, you guys.
Sitting here, it's as easy as that, kids.
You know, it's just a textbook example of how to make it in Hollywood.
That's right.
This is great, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. And so I'm gonna do a little preview for next week and a few parting words. First, I want to say a few words from our sponsors, and I put a reminder to myself to turn on our banners that say like, follow, subscribe, and share. And also want to mention that today's episode of Pandemic is brought to you by Roadmap Writers and Notes for Execs, companies that need to provide me with more copy to read so that I'm not saying the same thing over and over. Roadmap Writers is an online writer education platform hosted by working industry executives. If you're looking for a real-world solution to help develop, market, and sell your script, visit roadmapwriters.com to learn more. Notes for Execs is a company that guides working entertainment executives on how to give better and more effective creative notes. Now they're opening their doors to writers as well, who can learn a lot about their own writing through learning about the notes-giving process. Visit notesforexecs.com for more information. And with that, we are closing out what is amazingly week 4. Next week, we will again be 5 nights a week, and we will be starting with Orange Squire, who's currently on Evil and The Good Fight, and prior to that has been on This Is Us. He's also a really accomplished playwright, which will be a lot of fun to talk about. We actually know each other because an actor who played the stand-in character for me in a play that I wrote played the stand-in character for him in a play that he wrote, and I went up and I went, hey, we must be pretty similar because we both cast the same guy to be us. And then Javi Grillo Markswash, sorry, I always missay, who will be on Tuesday, and we'll be broadcasting at an earlier time. Part of the reason I wanted to keep doing this announcement, we'll be doing that at 4 p.m. and then rebroadcasting at 6. And next week will also be our last week that we're planning on doing 5 guests. The next week we're going to switch over to 3 nights a week so that I and Tasha can catch our breath and have time to finish editing these highlight reels that we've been working on and are just totally backlogged with because we keep doing this every single night, and that's a lot of content. So thank you all very much for watching, and hope to see you back next week at 9 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and that is our show. Thanks as always for tuning in.
PENdemic.